Hi, friends. Welcome to the Date Like the Movies podcast with your host, Brent Jensen. Today I am joined by my good friend, Sarah Owens, who was married last September. Yes, Sarah, you can wave to the camera, wave to the listeners. Sarah got married last September, so very happy to have her on here to talk through one of her favorite movies, which we'll get to in just a bit. But before we do, Sarah is easily, easily the biggest Buffalo Bills fan I know of. And I think she hears that a lot because she is a diehard Buffalo Bills fan, which is her hometown team. So she is located out in New York as well. So looking forward to hearing Sarah's thoughts, especially as a newly married perspective on the movie we'll be talking about today, which is a 1998 film. The Wedding Singer, a very popular, very common, well-known Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore movie. For those of you that haven't seen The Wedding Singer, I'm not sure where you've been the past 27 years, because I feel like everyone should have seen this movie by now. But if you haven't, here's a brief intro into The Wedding Singer, where our two main characters find themselves both engaged at the start of the film, but under very different circumstances. We have Robbie Hart, who is played by Adam Sandler, the wedding singer, who has a pending wedding coming up in the near future when the movie initially kicks off, with a woman that he is convinced he is going to spend the rest of his life with. Julia Sullivan, our other main character, played by Drew Barrymore, is a new waitress at a reception hall that often hosts weddings. He is also engaged, but wants more than anything for her fiance to set a wedding date. Seems to be one of those engagements where there's just no end in sight, and so that's been her frustration. This duo of Robbie and Julia, they meet and befriend each other at a wedding that they are both working at, in which Robbie promises to sing at Julia's future wedding. That is, if her fiance Glenn, we'll get to him later on as well, ever sets a date. So I want to kick off with you, Sarah, here with kind of that story as our backdrop, is the friend zone. Because I recall one of our earlier conversations, and we talk about relationships quite a bit. If you ever wrote a book, you would have titled it Escaping the Friend Zone, which means there must be a story there. So tell me and our listeners, Sarah, why the friend zone is something you know something about.
Yeah, so I met my husband, my now husband, in 2015 on a dance floor of a college bar, a nasty college bar.
Okay.
We were friends for about 2 years before we started dating officially. I always had a crush on him. He always had a crush on me, but he said I was too wild for him. Escaping the friend zone is just because we were friends for 2 years before we dated. He was with somebody else when we first, became friends. He was with another relationship. I always say escaping the friend zone. I did it successfully because we were friends for so long before we started dating. I have a story to tell and might as well teach the world how to escape the friend zone.
Yeah. So it ties into the movie well, too, because at the movie, right, The Wedding Singer, Robbie and Julia, initially friends first, not near as long as you were with your now husband, but they were trying to be friends at first, and at the beginning of the film, they were not available. They were totally taken. How did you turn that friend zone into a success? Like, was there anything that either of you did, or who made the first move?
Yes, I made the first move, I guess. One thing about me, I love the Buffalo Bills, being in New York, being close to Buffalo. Chicken wings are a huge thing here. So lots of the college town bars that we would go to would have Monday night wing nights. And I was frequenting these Monday night wing nights. You could get 20 wings and a pitcher for a beer for $20. So find a better deal. You could not in today's economy. We were going out for wings, and I told him one night, I saw on Facebook, he was like, anyone getting wings? And I was like, I am. I was not that night. I drove about 45 minutes from where I was to go put some makeup on and meet him for wings with one of my friends and his friends. And then he liked the wings so much. He was like, oh, do we want to go again on Monday? I was like, I go every Monday. So yeah, you can come with us if you want. We went to a couple wing nights with friends. He would bring some friends. I would bring my friends. One day I was like, my one friend that would come with me, her name was also Sarah. She said, I'm so excited for chicken wings tonight. I said, actually, you're going to stay home. I'm going to go with Sunny on my own this time and see how it goes. But he doesn't know that. So went to wing night. We were there for about an hour before he even asked where she was. It was just me and him. And I was like, oh, I didn't tell you she had like car trouble or something. I made something up. And he was like, oh, well, you can tell her to stay home. It can just be you and me from now on. And I was like, that's when we started to kind of, just hang out, the two of us. So yeah, we're bonded over chicken wings.
Chicken wings, Buffalo Bills,
Yep.
and two Sarahs, interesting too.
Yep.
Sarah
Yep.
telling one Sarah to stay home.
Yep.
I'm curious, at what point, Sarah, did you tell the truth behind that story to
Oh,
your now husband?
like
Was it
we were dating for like 3 years before I
okay? I was
even
wondering
told
about
him
that.
that. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story. I feel like a lot of couples, that's challenging. In your case, you both liked each other, so
Mm-hmm.
you had that going on for you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not like that. One likes the other, and the other
Yeah.
is not feeling it, and that can be a tough situation. Well, what about Julia and Robbie's initial friendship? Anything stand out to you around kind of their initial interactions in the movie?
They first meet and they kind of are joking with each other. Humor is always a great way to start a friendship. Now, whether your humor lines up with the other one, that's a different story. But they bantered a lot in the beginning. I think they were both in similar places in their life by being engaged, planning on getting married, and they worked in the wedding scene. I think they had a lot of similarities and things in common. And that's what started their friendship, is that they were just working together in similar areas, similar industry, I should say.
He actually becomes her like co-wedding planner.
Mm-hmm.
She's looking for help, and he is the one who steps in and helps her plan her other wedding for the
Yep.
guy she's hoping to get married to. Definitely started with the wedding scene there. Anything else when you think of what's important about getting to know somebody and how someone should go about that?
I am a firm believer in always being yourself. As long as you stay true to yourself from the very beginning and you don't lose yourself in that process, that's the best way to get to know somebody, just by being authentically you. The person that's meant for you or meant to know you will love you for that. They'll get to know you for that. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I learned. Is with Sunny, I was completely myself from the very beginning. It's funny, we talked about chicken wings, and a lot of women, maybe they can relate to this if they're watching, will say, like, oh, I don't eat on a first date. And I was hounding down 10 chicken wings before we were even dating, right? Like, I'm going to be myself. Being yourself is what's going to take you the farthest. And if they don't like you, then get going. On to the next one.
It is one of those things where sometimes we try and put on a facade, I think, or trying, especially with those first impressions, try to be somebody we're not, which is interesting because on the flip side of that, like you mentioned, then we're attracting somebody who may not like us for who we are anyways. We do it sometimes because we think it's going to help, but in the long run, it's not helping anybody. And it's,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, that's a great perspective you have.
Well, and they even do it in the movie. Like, and I didn't even think about this until just now. There's that scene when her friend, Julia's friend, says, don't you know she's with Glenn for money? And that's when Adam Sandler's character goes to try to get a job at a bank. He's like, I just need money. Like, the girl I'm with wants money. I think that's also a testament from this movie, being true to yourself, the real person. The one will.
He has like no experience, and he goes in there, and
Can
the
you
guy's
give me a
like,
business card or
yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of friend, it was a friend who noticed that Robbie and Julia had feelings for each other before they admitted it themselves. Like they may have thought about it, but they didn't admit it
Yeah.
until the friend kind of brought it out of them, which initially started on the double date scene. There's a scene in there where Julia's best friend goes out with Robbie, the Adam
Yep.
Sandler character, which is when he meets Julia's fiance Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
It's the friend that has a crush on Robbie, but towards the end of that, she could tell that he had feelings for Julia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did any of your friends see you and Sunny, before you guys did?
With Sunny, I treated him differently than I did all of my other like potential relationships or boyfriends. Before we were even dating, I didn't tell very many people that we were in the talking stage, if you will. Only a few people knew, because the less people that know, the better. I didn't want
Yeah.
people in my business with that. So I think people knew that we liked each other from being out and seeing how we would interact once we announced that we were dating. which is funny. Story there. I told Sonny not to put it on Facebook right away because I didn't know if we were gonna make it. For some reason, I was like, "Don't put it out there just yet. Give it a week and see how it goes." He put it out there before I could even see it. I was driving on my way home, and he posted it. And all of the people that commented on it were like, "Finally, we saw this coming." I didn't think that people would see it coming, so that one's kind of a twofer there, if you will. I
Yeah.
didn't think that people would see it, but based off of their reactions once we announced that we were dating, I think a lot of people saw it when we were out and interacting with each other.
The more people you tell, if it doesn't go right, the more people are going to ask about it, and the more people you have to break the news to. Yeah, by the way, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And so I could definitely see the pause in telling the world, essentially, which is kind of what Facebook is. You're
Yep.
telling your world at least.
Yep.
Yeah, about those moments in your life. So,
Yep.
what about saying "I love you" first? Is
Yeah.
that you or Sunny? Who
Sonny said
did
I
that one
love you
first?
first.
Oh, nice. I like
Yeah.
that. Props to Sunny.
Well, I knew it first, but I wasn't going to say it until he did.
Okay. So did
So
he say it then? Did you say it like right back? He was like, "I love
I
you." You were
did
like, "I
say
love
it
you."
back. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep. I think I
Sounds good.
actually waited until the next day to say it back.
Oh, you had to mull it over. You had to
I
think
was
about it for a
like,
night.
I remember him saying it, but I think we were like out somewhere. And I don't know if he slipped out, like if it just slipped out, or if he meant it. So the next morning I was like, "Do you remember saying this to me?" He was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "So say it again." And then he said it again. And then I was like, "Okay, well, me too. I love you too."
That's good. Yeah, making sure he remembered saying it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Yep.
good
Yep.
step. Yeah. Going back in time a little bit in terms of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
because Robbie was engaged to Linda at the
Yep.
beginning of this movie, and she pulls, oh man, the ultimate rejection, like the no-show at the wedding, standing him up.
Yeah.
And later, Linda says to Robbie, "I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it." And then there's a scene where Linda is telling her friends she's not in love with Robbie today. She
Yep.
was with him 6 years ago.
Yep.
Have you ever experienced any heartbreak like on a big scale? Maybe not necessarily at a wedding per se, but just a
Yeah.
big scale heartbreak and had to deal with that?
Well, so what's funny is now that my frontal lobe is developed, I say no, but Sarah, who was going through it at like 24 years old, thinks it was a huge heartbreak. So yes and no. Hindsight's 2020, so in the moment, yeah. But now that I look back at it as an adult, it taught me a lot of lessons, and I was really dramatic about it. Yes, I have experienced that. Wouldn't recommend it, but I think that it made me into who I am today and jump started what was really important to me in my life and what I wanted in relationships moving forward. And it definitely wasn't that. So,
That's awesome. Yeah, you learn from relationships, and
mm-hmm.
hopefully that can help with future ones. How do you
Yes.
feel about what Linda said to Robbie about not being in love with you today, but I was 6 years ago?
Yeah, so I've thought a lot about this and I understand what she's saying as a woman. However, there are different ways to go about it. So, when you're
Yeah.
serious about somebody and you really want to be with them and you see your life with them, you're going to go through phases of life. Sunny and I are not the same people that we were 8 years ago when we first started dating. So you have to love each other through those different changes and those phases. And you want to grow together. Linda did not want to grow together. I think she wanted him because he was, I think she even says, when you're singing into the microphone like David Lee Roth, leather pants, and he's like, "I'm not doing that anymore." I think she wanted the fame, the rock and roll, and he wanted to settle down, and they did not have the same priorities. What she did was diabolical. Fair that she was in love with him 6 years ago and those things, but if you really loved him, she would have stayed with him and wanted to grow with him. I think they had different priorities.
Definitely. And on the other side of that too, the time and the place as
Mm-hmm.
well. If she truly doesn't love him, then long term, it's better that they did not get married. It's better that she calls it off, she breaks it off if they're engaged. But yeah, at a wedding,
Just maybe
I mean,
not
she
the
knew she
morning
knew
of.
before. She
And
knew
she left
before.
a note.
Yeah.
She left a note out of
Oh
all
no, it's
things.
brutal. That is brutal.
It
Yeah.
was, yeah. Was it a good note?
Yeah. 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 But then she tries to get back with him down
Yeah,
the road, which
yeah.
is, yeah,
Insane behavior,
yeah.
Linda. Insane.
Definitely insane. So, yeah. And you just talked about kind of being dramatic with how you responded. Robbie responded by staying in the basement for days after getting rejected. His friend gives him some advice,
Mm-hmm.
which encourages him to get back to work,
Yep.
where he sings "Love Stinks." I
Yep.
believe and gets punched right at his first gig,
Yeah.
clearly not ready to go back. And his friend encourages him to get with other women to get over Linda. So he got two pieces of advice there: women and get back to work. But how do you feel about his friend's advice to Robbie's rejection?
In Robbie's instance, I don't think going back to work in the wedding industry after you were stood up at your wedding was a smart idea. And you obviously see that play out. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the movie, you will see
Hmm.
that play out. If it was me in my life, the world doesn't stop because something happened to me, right? So I would have to go back to work. I would have to continue on with my day to day. Now, the second piece of advice, um, you know, people tend to hook up with people after breakups to make the pain go away, and it doesn't. It doesn't make it any better. I don't agree or disagree. I also think it's different for men than it is for women. So, for a
Interesting.
woman's perspective, if a woman goes out and does that after a breakup, they get labeled all of these nasty things. But if a man does it, then, they're like, yeah, you got back out there. Good job for you. As a woman, I don't recommend that. I also think there's power in knowing what your worth is. So I've never participated in things like that. And I think that advice will hold true in certain scenarios, but not for women, not for this scenario. I don't think it was the best either. It was in the 80s, so I wasn't alive then, unfortunately. I'm not
That's a good
sure what,
point, though.
what the culture was like then, so.
We didn't even mention that, right? We said the movie came out in '98, but it's
Mm-hmm.
based from like '85 or the mid
Mm-hmm.
'80s, which we learned early on in the movie. I can totally see that as
Yep.
a double standard for men and women. We need a different episode on double standards because I feel like we could go
Yes.
through a lot of different double
Oh, yeah.
standards. I'll bring you back for that one. We'll
You
bring you
wanted me to
back.
pull out my soapbox for that one, I will.
Hey, I'll just let you talk. I would just let you talk for that one. Um, there was a brief scene I wanted to talk about here too.
Mm-hmm.
Just a brief moment. Robbie later says to just a boy, like a young boy, I don't know how old he was. There's this dance going on, and Robbie says to him, "Why would you want to dance with someone who doesn't want to dance with you?"
Yeah.
And that one kind of spoke to me a bit. Do you have any thoughts on Robbie's advice there to this young boy?
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Why would you want to dance with somebody who doesn't want to dance with you? But like, why would you
Yeah.
waste your time? It was like, I think it was at the
Hmm.
bat mitzvah where they were
Oh,
doing that.
yes,
You have to be what,
yes.
12. That's probably the age where they're all into starting to like girls and dance with girls and things like that. I think that's great advice to think about and look at. Why would you
Yeah,
want
I
to
feel
spend your time with someone who isn't interested in doing that with you?
I think that speaks to your earlier point on being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not yourself, trying to attract someone that doesn't necessarily want you for you,
Yeah.
um, but in this case, we kind of using the boy as an example here. I think it's a tough pill to swallow because
Yeah.
rejection hurts. Even though, yeah, it makes sense. Like, why would you want to dance with someone that doesn't want to dance with you? It is still rejection, and so I think
Yeah.
in that moment, definitely still hurts. And this is a young boy example, but I think it applies to older teenagers, adults in the dating world too. Um, where yeah, if someone doesn't want to be with you, then it's reality, but it still hurts too. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, let's talk about Glenn. We have to talk about Glenn. I mean, he is
Glad.
one of the main. He is one of the main characters in the film. Uh, this is Glenn. This is Julia's fiance,
Yep.
though no wedding date is in sight. You were with Sonny for 7 years before you were married, or tell us a bit around kind of the length of time there and
Yeah, it was 7.5
okay.
by the time we got married. Yep.
7.5 years. But you knew him 2 years before that point
Yeah.
too.
Yep. So I've known him for a total of 10 years. As of
Okay.
now, we've been together 8 total years, married for almost one in September.
Let me ask you this question. then? Because I feel like this could be a hot topic, or it is a hot topic for a lot of couples.
Hmm.
How important was it to you to be married? Because some will say it's just a paper, some will say it's important, all across the board in opinions there. But what were your thoughts on that? Because you were already together for a long time,
Yep.
before.
Yep. We were. He proposed to me just after 5 years. For our 5 year anniversary, we went and looked at rings.
Okay.
That was our 5 year anniversary date. Marriage was extremely important to me. I have my parents as an example. They've been married 35 years. This year was 35 years. I think how you grew up and what you witnessed in marriage will define if it's important to you or not. Sonny didn't have that example. So he was very, in the beginning, against marriage. We had very opposing views on marriage. It was more important to me than it was important to him at the time. I'm also the oldest daughter. I have that maternal instinct in me. I've always wanted to be married. And Disney movies gave me like a false expectation of what that would be like.
Yeah, they do that. Yep.
When you grow up watching Disney and all of that, and when you're a girl, when you dream about getting married and all of that from a very young age.
Did you have it planned out from like when you were 8 or something? Like all the
I
details?
I would think about it. I remember when I was like younger, I was obsessed with Cinderella. And when she gets married, she has that ball gown. She goes away in the horse-drawn carriage. I think that kind of set the expectation for when I was older. And then my wedding was the opposite. I did not like the ball gowns and things like that when I was going there. But yeah, I think that set an idea in my head of what I would want. I think I remember being like 8 or 9 years old talking about wanting to get married. Yeah.
Wow. At what point did Sunny come around, or was that a conversation you guys had, or like
We
how
talked about
hard?
it a lot.
You did talk about it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing about me, Brent, is if someone says that they don't like something and you're like dating me, I'm not gonna let it go. I'm gonna check in with you and see like, hey, how's it going? Have you changed your ideas on this? And then when we started living together, I was like, I'm not gonna live with you if we're not gonna like be together. Why would I waste my time living with you, getting to know you? And there's when you're living with somebody, you learn so much more about them. So for me, that was time invested, money invested, energy invested. If he didn't want to marry me at that point, then I'd find somebody else. So we were on the same page around year 2 that we wanted to get married. I'm telling you, that frontal lobe development really came in handy. That's the second time I brought it up. Yeah, and I think when you find the one that you're meant to be with, it changes the way you think about things too.
Interesting. Has there been a differences that you've seen in your relationship pre and post marriage, especially because you were already living together?
Yeah.
It does make me wonder, has there been differences, or has anything changed since you guys did get married last year?
Yeah, I always say it feels more serious now. Not that it wasn't serious before. That's kind of my hot take on it, is it feels more serious now. Something about the intention behind it. When you're planning your wedding, you have to go get your marriage license. You need to find somebody to marry you. That was important to me, who married us, because you're bringing them into your life, and, you're committing yourself to another human being for the rest of your life, and you're being vulnerable. And then signing the marriage license, watching our witnesses sign the marriage license, it's almost like a reflection that they believe in our relationship. So that's what I mean, like it feels more serious now. Yeah, that's the only thing that really feels different. That, and I still haven't changed my name, so ask me when I finally get around to changing my last name, because that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Um, would you have ever eloped?
Looking back at it now, probably. I don't regret anything we did for the wedding. Everything was perfect. I don't regret spending money on it, but yeah, I can see why people elope.
That's my transition back to the movie, by the
Yeah.
way. Because not only do they have differences views on marriage, they also have different opinions on what they would like their wedding to be.
Yep.
And so Glenn, he just wants to elope in Vegas, head down there, get taken care of in the weekend type of deal.
Yep.
And Jules says to Glenn, this is a direct quote, "We have a lot of planning to do," implying that she wants him to be in it together. I know when I got married, I did very little. I was like, tell me when to be there. and I'll show up. That was kind of, I mean, I'll just admit it. That was
Yeah.
basically my involvement. Was Sonny, was he involved in the wedding planning experience, or what was that like for you? I know we've talked about this, I know off camera
Yeah.
a bunch, but yeah.
Um, Wedding planning brought out a new side of me that I don't think Sunny experienced. I am extremely type A, so planning a wedding for me was like, this is the big leagues. I cannot wait to pull out my spreadsheets and organize and do all of these things. Sunny is not that way at all. He was kind of like you, just tell me when to be there. And I said, no, absolutely not. You should know when to be there. I will tell you, but you're going to need to know. And you're going to need to keep your groomsmen in line. I asked him what the two most important things were for him in the wedding. And he's a big foodie. We're big foodies, right? We talked about the chicken wings already.
Hmm.
So he was like, I want to be part of food and what we wear. I was like, perfect. I don't know what it's like to wear a suit. I could only imagine how hot it would be wearing a suit in September. You never know what the weather is going to be like here. Those were the two things that he was really wanting to be a part of, other than like what our rings looked like, right? We picked out the rings together. That was something else he wanted. He was particular about what his ring would look like, what he wore, and the food.
I have to ask you this question now. Did you have chicken wings at the wedding? Was that the
We
food?
did,
Oh,
yes.
you did? That's perfect.
Yes.
I don't
So
think I knew that.
instead of
Maybe I did.
doing wedding favors, you know how like every time you go to a wedding, there's something at the seat. Sometimes it's like snacks. I wanted to do wedding koozies,
Mm.
but going to weddings, I'm like, how many times do people actually take home the favor? Like I do, but like how many times do you actually use it? So instead of doing a type of favor for the wedding, we did late night pizza and wings as like a snack at 9 o'clock. We had an hour left and they pulled out pizza and wings. We got pictures of us cheersing a chicken wing with each
Hey,
other.
I mean, your relationship started with chicken wings, so
Yeah,
why not take the next step with chicken wings?
yeah.
And, every
Hmm.
good relationship and couple needs to have those, yeah,
Yep,
those types of
absolutely.
those things that are just kind of represent your relationship. And for you guys, it's chicken wings. So how about
Yep,
that?
yep.
Yeah. Um, this might be the most important question I have to ask you today. Sarah Owens, were you a bridezilla?
Okay, so not compared to what you see on TV
Okay.
or compared to like other weddings that I've been in the past, I think I was extremely laid back until I didn't have to be. I would pull out the bridezilla if I needed it, which was just mostly shown through stressful times, right? Like my makeup artist didn't get back to me for until like the week before the wedding because she was also doing other weddings, or she had just had a baby. That stress kind of made me a little more, quick to bite, if you will, and be a little snippy. But other than things like that, I don't think I was a bridezilla. I had my
Okay.
moments, but I don't think I was a bridezilla.
Do you have any advice for couples that might be in Glenn and Julie's situation where they just have completely different views on wedding involvement from the couple? Like any
Mhm.
advice for couples that are just at odds with those
Yeah.
types of situations?
Well, in the beginning, Sunny and I were kind of at odds with it. I did not want a big wedding by any means. I think we had a total of 107 people, and that included us and the bridal party and our vendors, because you got to feed those people too. He wanted to elope in the beginning. That's going to be the next thing that you talk about after you get married too. Relationships are about compromising and finding out what's most important to each of you. You're going to have to sit down and have that conversation. Talking to Sunny, I was like, well, it's important to me for XYZ reasons to have these people celebrate us at this wedding. Is it important for you to elope? Right? And we just had open conversation about what it looked like for us and why. And then we compromised on a smaller wedding, not eloping, but smaller, because we wanted to be surrounded by people that we want to be part of our lives for the rest of our lives. So I think compromise is something, and deep conversation about what's important to each of you that's never going to end in your relationship. If anything, is just starting now while you're wedding planning. So get it out of the way. Start having that open conversation. And the other piece of advice is you're going to need to listen to understand your partner, not listen to respond to them. I think people think that everything has to be an argument, or your voice needs to be heard more than the other person's, and that's not the case, especially with the person you're going to
Yeah.
spend the rest of your life with.
Speaking of weddings and marriage,
Mm-hmm.
it's a time in people's lives where they hear a lot of advice.
Yeah.
Some of it solicited, a lot of it unsolicited.
Yeah.
Do you recall Julia's mom's advice to her to set a date? Would you like to share with our
Yeah.
audience what that advice is?
Honey, just fake a pregnancy to get Glenn to set a date.
Is that the worst advice you've ever heard for a pending
Probably
wedding?
up there. I think I
Yeah.
blocked out all of the worst advice I ever heard because I didn't care about it. I think that's where the Bridezilla came out. Honestly, Brent, was when people
Mm,
tried to give me their advice that I didn't want.
mm.
Um, yeah, that's up there.
Is there any one or two that you can recall of advice that you got that you just thought was
Um,
just bad advice?
Really anything that was unsolicited. I remember talking to some of the girls that were in my bridal party without name dropping. They'll probably know who they are if they do listen to this. And I'm not sorry. I'll get that out now. I said, I think I want everyone to wear their hair up in the bridal party just because it'll look cohesive. And everybody had a different dress. I let them pick out their style of dress, but I said hair, I think, should probably be all up. And I had one girl try to show me pictures of what her wedding was, and I got kicked out of her wedding. I was like, I know, I was in attendance at your wedding. I know what it looked like. I don't need your advice. So just people that were like trying to overstep what I
Mm.
was coming up with or saying why their ideas for my wedding would be better. I did not stand for that.
Do you ever hear any comments from family members, maybe not trying to be rude, but comments around, why aren't you married yet? Like, I feel like you just rolled your eyes. I feel like that's a yes. That's a
This
yes.
is where the bridezilla would come out
Yeah,
because
okay.
not everybody has had the same upbringing, right? Not everybody has witnessed
Mm-hmm.
positivity in marriage. Not everybody feels like, because I got a lot of it was always the people that were engaged after 6 months that were like, why aren't you married yet? And I was like, why don't you just mind your own business? Respectfully, I think that people forget that not everyone goes through the same experience or has the same thought process around marriage or weddings. Marriages and weddings are two separate things. They do
Mm-hmm.
work together, but they are two separate things. And I think people tend to forget that. Not marriage isn't cookie cutter. Relationships aren't cookie cutter. Every couple goes through their own things to get them to that point to be ready to be married.
Going back to the movie here, we'll talk about red flags here in a bit. And so we got to talk about Glenn because we're talking red flags.
Yep.
What can you tell our listeners around Julie's fiance, Glenn? And is he as big of a jerk as he appears on
Yes.
screen?
Yes. Yes, Glenn Gulia, first of all. Bold of him to be acting the way that he does with a name like that. That's all I have to say. There are a few things that I think pop up to me as red flags. The way he acted at their engagement party, when he was talking about how it's important to watch Miami Vice, and then he says, no, it's actually the reruns. It's like, well, when the reruns are on, what are you doing? He's out creeping with other girls, right? He gets caught pretty much cheating
Mhm.
for his bachelor party, which indicates to me that that's not the first time. Another red flag is when he doesn't listen to Julia really at all. I think he brings home like the CD player and she's like excited to tell him about something and he's just like, look, it's a CD player. And it's like, okay, like she's trying to talk to you about things about your wedding and all you care about is the latest technology.
That totally dates the movie, by the way. He's
Yeah.
bringing home like this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep. It's so
Yeah.
funny. Then the other thing that just stands out to me is I think that he loved the idea of her and being married, but I don't think he loved or liked her at all. I think he found her as the easy way into that. But I don't think he had any intention of loving her or liking her beyond
The
that.
double date, yeah, the double date was just prime example, and that was when Robbie, I think, saw it for the first time.
Yes. How he treated her and how he treated her friend.
Yep.
He indicates that Holly, her friend, is easy, if you will. The way that she dresses and stuff, it's like, oh, ew, that gave me the ick. He gave me the ick the entire movie, Brent, and once you get the ick, it's hard to come back from the ick.
I don't remember exactly how Robbie says it at that date, but he's basically getting to the point of once he's married, he'll stop
Yeah.
fooling around with other women, and he just doesn't even hide it. He's
No.
like, no. He says it
He's like,
differently,
I've
but he's
had
basically like,
hotter. Yep. He says, I've
yeah,
had
yes,
hotter yesterday.
yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. Ew. Ew.
Just like that's a complete arrogance too. Her best friend tells Robbie she's marrying him for money. So we
Mm.
learn about that in the movie. He's openly cheating. No plans to stop that behavior either. We learn about from Glenn as well. Have you been the friend in situations like that where you've seen some red flags, but your friend maybe was blinded?
Yeah, I don't want to name drop, so I'll just be broad about some of these things. I've known who I am from a very young age. I know what to put up with and what not to put up with. And it's something that upsets me when I see my friends who I hold to a high standard, when I see them not being treated the way that they deserve. And I think it's also important as women to stand up for other women and let them know, like, hey, this ain't normal. You should rethink that. So there have been a few toads in my friends' relationships, a few frogs. I had one friend whose boyfriend would take her phone and text me as her. I wasn't born yesterday, okay? Like, I know how she texts, and he did not
Hmm.
text the same way as her. He tried to, like, pit us against each other when we were very young, and I was like, actually, you're not going to do that. No, thank you. Thank God that relationship didn't last. She's in a much better place now. I've had other friends who just dated complete duds, no job. And I don't want to say to the jobless community, you're not all like that, okay? But this guy was. Let me clear that statement up. But he would borrow her car. I think he got in an accident in her car and then lied about it. Just things like that. And it's just like, ugh, we don't need to be dealing with that.
In that last situation, especially when you see one of your friends in a dud type of relationship, do you keep it to yourself, or are you one who brings it up to them, or like how do you
Yeah.
handle that?
Here's the thing with me, Brent. I have a hard time keeping things to myself, especially if they're blatantly obvious or if they might be looking it over. So I'm going to say what's on my mind. I need to be better about my delivery with that sometimes. But sometimes you just need to hear it. With some of my friends, I was just like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Why? Do you not know who you are and, what you deserve? And I think that's part of the problem, that they were treated like that by other men in their lives. And that's what they thought that they deserved. I do my best to make sure they know that. Nobody deserves things like that. So I do speak my mind. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but I would rather make somebody uncomfortable and second guess a situation that might put them in danger or hurt them later on down the road than hold my breath and hold my tongue for something that might, you know, save them from feeling like that for a few minutes. Yeah.
From what I know about you, I had a hunch that your answer
Yep.
would go along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
Sometimes the person in the relationship is almost like they're too close to the situation,
Yeah.
or maybe they're just blinded by the good moments and
Yes.
they don't see the rest of it. So it takes the outsider perspective to see it. It's a tough situation because um, as their friend, right, might not be sure how they will receive it. If it could affect your friendship perhaps, or
Yeah.
yeah. So kudos to you for doing that. It can be a difficult situation, I think, sometimes too.
It can. It's definitely made
Yeah.
things sticky a few times, but like I
Hmm.
said, I would rather have them come to me if they needed a break from me after that and they needed to figure it out on their own and then come to me later and say I should have listened to you, or why didn't I listen to you? It's what they have to deal with. Ultimately, whatever I say isn't going to change the way that they choose to handle it. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I would rather say something than not.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite scene from the movie, or maybe it's just a funny scene,
My favorite scene from The Wedding Singer.
or something that's memorable?
I love when at the end when they are flying to Vegas and he goes to buy a ticket. He doesn't know like where they're gonna get married in Vegas, and Billy Idol's there and he has all of first class, like listening to the
Yes.
story. And then that part where the flight attendant comes in and she was like, some jerk in coach just told me that I'm grade A top choice meat. And he's like, wait, what? And then he looks and like they're just on the plane and he sings the song and ugh. And then the don't talk to Billy Idol that way when he hits
Oh
him
yeah.
with the drink
Yes.
cart. Just that entire perfect ending to the movie.
Yeah.
Another honorable mention, my favorite scene. It's actually two scenes, but it's the same thing. When he's teaching the older woman to sing the song and she pays him in meatballs.
Oh
And then when she
yeah.
sings the song, um, that just, I don't know, it just, made me feel some sort of way.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned the ending because the ending is a huge part of kind of the movie.
Yeah.
One scene that we haven't mentioned yet, it's not my favorite scene, but it definitely is memorable, is when they kiss the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like her friend is like prepping her
Oh,
for how
yeah.
to
She knew
kiss,
what she was
right? The
doing.
wedding kiss. And Glenn's not there. Robbie's there. They're not together yet. And she's like, kiss him. And so they kiss as like a wedding prep. And that was one of those first moments when I think they both realized uh, it was more than a friendship.
Yeah.
Glenn shows up like moments later, and they
Yes.
have to like, oh no, it was the friend who
I
kissed
gave her her
Robbie.
jacket. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that was a wild scene too.
So funny.
There's some good ones
Yep.
in this movie. What about the relationship itself? Like anything that stand out to you about what you like the most about Robbie and Julia's relationship?
They're so funny. Like when they go and they're planning the wedding, they talk to the photographer and pretend to be brother and sister, and he like bites her and she like pinches him.
Yes.
That was absolutely wild, but it was so funny to me. It's like you can see them and their relationship kind of evolve, and it's like it has to happen. There has to be something there. Yeah, I think that's one scene that stands out about how far they came in such a short amount of time.
I
And
love
when they
that too.
mess with the guy who's driving the limo, his one friend, that's hilarious too.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't even mentioned his friend yet. Um,
No.
yeah, he's got a few moments there as well. That playful banter
Mm-hmm.
is so important, and I feel like it's underrated sometimes
Yeah.
when we talk about relationship attributes that are important. And yeah, just being able to have fun with each other, be playful,
Yep.
and they had a few of those moments, even though they weren't even together yet, but you could see that they had that, that connection was possible with some of those moments. So,
Yeah. They were building trust with each other
yeah,
slowly along the way.
yep, yep. All right, Sarah, let's move on to one of our last segments we'll do here with a segment called Date That Movie, which is a big part of Date Like the Movies is using movies to unleash our dating creativity. Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I have no issue at all with dinner and movie. It's a classic date. It's often the go-to date. However, there's so much more that we could do just to have fun on dates. Any stage. It could be first date. It could be someone you've been with together for 40 years. Everything in between. There's so many options and so much you can do with dating and having dates. So Date That Movie, this segment, is all about Sarah and myself each coming up with a date idea that was inspired from the movie in some way. It could be anything that inspires us. Sarah, do you have one you'd like to share that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I had to think about this for a minute because they don't really date in the movie. They wedding plan and they hang out together and they do all this stuff. But one scene that sticks out to me, and I laugh because it's probably the most unhinged scene of the entire movie, is when they go test out the other wedding singer and she gets him to sing the song that he wrote. And I'll leave it at that. But he pretty much goes off the rails with the song, and you can see it in her eyes that she's heartbroken for him. But she takes him to get ice cream after. So, my date that I came up with is an impromptu date idea. If you know that your significant other is having a bad day, go take them for ice cream.
All right.
Ice
I
cream.
love it. Yeah, ice cream, yeah, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And ice cream too is, to me, that's good any time of year. Like, there's
Yeah.
no
Oh,
never
yeah.
a bad time. One of my weaknesses,
Yeah,
actually,
absolutely.
is ice cream.
Absolutely.
Um, the day I came up with was just thinking along the lines of what's something that could be inexpensive, possibly even free, possibly even at home. I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
thinking that way because some couples do struggle with thinking, dates expensive. It doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
It does not
Mm-hmm.
have to be expensive. It can be at home. It could be simple things because really it's all about connection. It's all about creating a connection. And so my date idea is at home, which would include singing karaoke together because the whole
Okay.
movie is great, great songs, by the way, in the film.
Yeah.
Don't even have to have a karaoke machine. And then the second thing I'm throwing in there is learning something on YouTube together.
Okay.
Okay. My specific idea is a very brief moment in the movie where I believe it's Robbie's friend is teaching the moonwalk.
Oh yeah.
Do you
Yep.
remember that moment in the
Yep.
film?
Yep.
That's my at-home date idea. Karaoke and learn the moonwalk, karaoke moonwalk, and ice cream. You could do all this together. You could do all those together
Yeah, you
actually in one
can
big
do all
date.
of that together.
So
Absolutely.
so that's date that movie for this episode.
I love that.
Lastly, what we'll do here, Sarah, is this final segment I like to call Lights, Camera, Action, because in the spirit of showbiz and the premise behind Date Like the Movies, it's not just for Hollywood. This is where I'll ask you for your action, meaning just what's one lesson or action that someone can take from The Wedding Singer and apply to their own relationships. Is there an
Ooh.
action that you had in mind?
I'm going to take it back to two things: the being yourself, always be yourself. Um, and then you're going to have to compromise, listen to each other, listen to understand your partner, listen not to respond or make yourself heard. So, those are my two takeaways: always
Yeah,
be
love that.
yourself and always listen to be better.
It's great. I'll add one too. Uh, do not settle for relationships that don't appreciate you, because I
Yes.
feel like that was a common theme throughout as well. And it's important to feel cared about, to feel appreciated, and if you're in a relationship that's not that, uh, you deserve more, and you
Yeah.
need to find a way to get out of that relationship into a healthy one where you feel valued, supported, and appreciated. So that's my
Yeah.
final takeaway on Lights, Camera, Action. Sarah, thanks so much for joining me on this episode to discuss The Wedding Singer. We'll definitely have to have you back. We've already got some other ideas
Yeah.
to have you back for some future episodes. Thanks to the listeners for joining in once again to this episode of Date Like the Movies. Until next time, my friends, keep dating. Thanks so much.